I've fished these waters off Ishigaki, Okinawa, for over 40 years. But now Chinese Coast Guard vessels enter our borders daily, circling, pushing, even ramming our boats to drive us away. One fear stays with me. Tomorrow will be the day they try to sink my boat.
Many people think the invasion starts with explosions, but Beijing is trying quieter tactics, buying land near our bases, shaping our news, and sending so-called research ships where fishermen once worked.
You won't hear this on primetime news, but every day, local island chat groups flood timelines with fresh images like this.
Can we and our laws stop China's silent takeover? But our past defenses hold clues for our quiet battles today. Let's check how Japan defended back then.
For centuries, Japan has built defensive layers to protect itself from China's threats across the sea. Hoping to build a buffer against Western empires, Meiji Japan becomes Qing China's fast track to modern know-how. Japanese translations of Western science circulate in Beijing, and reform-minded officials send hundreds of students to Japanese schools and military academies, twice the results with half the effort, they say. Chinese nationalist leader Chiang Kai-shek is one of those students who trained in Japan's military academy, called 13th Division. The scholars bring home copies of the Meiji Constitution. Some Qing scholars used Japan's modern laws and asked, could a system like Japan's keep China's emperor in power? Yet conservatives cherry-pick the hardware and dodge the political overhaul that Meiji reforms succeeded. Japan turns what Qing officials once dismissed as a pirate island into a modern hub, laying railways, wiring power grids, and opening schools that still anchor Asia's sea lane today. The aim is twofold: transform Taiwan into a self-feeding fortress and control the sea lane between the Pacific and the South China Sea. On mainland China, warlords split China into pieces, making it hard for the Chinese Nationalist Party to govern. Corruption and runaway inflation made people lose faith, and the Chinese Nationalist Party's focus on defending cities let communists take over the countryside. By 1949, the Chinese Nationalist Party fled to Taiwan, creating today's cross-strait standoff. Dawn smoke drifts over Changchun rail yards as Japanese troops raise a new flag, Manchukuo, a puppet state carved from Manchuria. Rail lines and factories pump coal to Tokyo. The puppet regime doubles as a forward base for resource extraction. And, ironically, the factories left in Manchukuo, which future Chinese communists used to prepare for the fight against Chinese nationalists. In 1972, Japan's Prime Minister, Kakue Tanaka, went to Beijing and signed an agreement that officially made peace with China. This deal reopened trade and travel between the two countries. Overnight, Japanese firms began shipping precision machinery across the East China Sea. At the time, China was still a developing country, and this influx of Japanese technology and know-how would lay the foundation for its rapid modernization in the decades to come. But modernization cut two ways. China learned, adapted, and transformed itself not only in factories but in mines. This new strength stoked a fierce battle inside China between communism and democracy, and now Beijing turns that lesson back on Japan. Now we'll see how Beijing uses anti-Japan scapegoating and new laws to tighten control over its people and silence any calls for democracy. First, a quick rewind. During the Cultural Revolution, 1966 to 76, Mao's Red Guards smashed Confucian temples and burned school classics. Moral rules broke down, and government slogans took over. After the Tiananmen crackdown in 1989, Beijing launched a new patriotic education campaign, lessons that frame Communist Party survival as payback for Japanese aggression. Textbooks keep replaying old wounds, and each time people read them, their loyalty grows stronger. In 2023, Beijing rewrote every school book. The first line now reads, "Safeguard our nation from Japanese aggression." This anti-Japan propaganda gets out of control. In 2023, an assailant stabbed a 9-year-old Japanese girl outside her Shanghai primary school. The attacker fled, and online commenters laughed. Thousands cheered with knife emojis.
Neighbors worry. If children cheer a murder online, what will next? This worry becomes a reality in 2024.
On September 18, 2024, China's National Humiliation Day, a 10-year-old Japanese elementary school boy was gruesomely stabbed in Shenzhen. Beijing called it an isolated case, and despite public outcry, the Japanese Foreign Ministry took no further action beyond calling the act regrettable. Under heavy pressure, the Japanese Foreign Ministry refused to raise the travel advisory for children, effectively silencing the danger and leaving residents vulnerable. Japan's own foreign ministry called the stabbing regrettable. Meanwhile, anti-Japan education and propaganda in China have spun out of control, and Beijing even pressures Japanese officials to downplay such attacks. Child safety groups now demand MOFA issue urgent travel warnings, especially for school children, before more harm can occur. When a child's murder is dismissed as merely regrettable and warship intrusions as routine, what threat will happen to us tomorrow? Chinese invasion becomes multi-layered. It uses the propaganda and repeated intrusions as routine, but now they're buying the land right next to us. Foreign shell companies have already secured hundreds of hectares within 3 kilometers of Japan's runways and radar domes. Japan's current laws can't stop them. Washington calls this a security threat. In 2023, the U.S. forced a Chinese billionaire to sell a North Dakota cornfield beside a drone base. How Japan reacts to this threat? Unfortunate, but Japanese government still hesitates. In Japan, a buyer needs only a mailing address, sometimes just a post box. Local councils often learn only after paperwork is filed that the new owner is actually a Chinese. Foreign companies now own land next to our homes, and soon they could fill it with surveillance cameras. Let's see what is happening in open water. Beijing calls the patrols routine, but in the last 5 years, ship entries have tripled, crowding Japanese waters without firing a shot. This is the gray zone, pressure below the level of open war. Fishermen hear megaphones ordering them to leave their own waters. The goal is simple: make daily life feel Chinese, one warning at a time. China rewrites history to speed up its push into Japan's islands. A retired admiral, Sun Jianguo, speaks to lawmakers in Tokyo. He says Okinawa belongs to the ancient Chinese maritime sphere. Even analysts inside Xi Jinping's circle say they desperately want Okinawa, not tomorrow, but when the political moment feels ripe. Chinese military planners rehearse a grab first, talk later strategy. Rush ashore, raise their flag, and only then start negotiations, while allies scramble to react. China's ships stay just below the shooting line, but their plan is already above it. Will Japan notice the takeover before the first shot, or after the flag is planted? It is a very slow action, but progress. Japan is no longer betting on diplomacy alone. This is the Maya-class Aegis destroyer. It can track 1,000 targets at once. From next year, it will launch US-made Tomahawk cruise missiles that reach 1,600 kilometers. That means a ship here in Kyushu, Japan, can hit a landing fleet off Shanghai. It's like an invisible line. Cross it, and a missile hits in seconds before anyone can react. In 2024, Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and Anthony Albanese signed the Japan-Australia Security Declaration, widely known as the Kishida-Albanese Joint Statement. It pledges that if the Taiwan Strait or the East China Sea erupts, Tokyo and Canberra will respond together, sharing radar feeds, opening ports, and coordinating logistics. In simple terms, Japan gains a southern friend whose submarines can watch the Indian Ocean flank while U.S. forces rush across the Pacific. The ring tightens. American satellites, Australian subs, Japanese missiles, all feeding the same radar picture within seconds. But hardware isn't enough if factories still depend on China. A recent survey found half of Japan's top firms plan to pull their supply chains home or to trusted allies within 3 years. Every bolt made here is one less part that Beijing can block at a port. Moving factories back to Japan may sound like dry economics, but it means our jets will still have engines, bolts, and fuel, even if China cuts off imports. In 2023, a retired Japan Ground Self-Defense Force general took a new post as special advisor to Taiwan's National Security Council, cementing Tokyo and Taipei's joint strategy to defend these islands. Guns, allies, and factories are lining up, but the outdated Japanese laws leave loopholes that invite the very threats these missiles are meant to deter. Fast-moving ships we can track, and secret land sails we can expose. But inside Parliament, a new law to stop foreign buyers is still stuck in committee. While they argue investment versus security, shell companies send fresh offers to elderly landowners. The coastline changes one signature at a time. Now, allies instantly share radar and satellite data, creating a seamless defense web from Hawaii through Okinawa to Australia. Recent update on the defense measures between Taiwan. Okinawa and Taiwan are now linked in defense over Taiwan Strait.
My grandparents feared bombs in Okinawa. Today, I fear China's silent invasion, hidden land deals, and information warfare. Our missiles can stop ships, but legal loopholes still leave us open.
Chinese incursions aren't only in Japan's waters, they're happening worldwide. What signs do you notice in your own country? Before you go, subscribe and ring the bell so YouTube keeps serving you the frontline intel the nightly news leaves out. Then drop a comment. What countermove should Japan, Australia, or the US try next? Your idea could shape a future episode. See you in the next video.